Oh my goodness. That's a great question because you would probably get
Vince Gill and Garth Brooks were both titans of 90s country music, yet their paths never quite crossed, and that wasn't by accident. While fans saw them as part of the same wave of legendary talent, the truth behind the scenes tells a different story. Garth brought fireworks, stadium tours, and theatrical flair to the genre. Rumors circulated in the early 2000s that Garth extended an invitation to Vince for a high-profile duet. Vince reportedly declined, not because of scheduling conflicts, but because of principle. To him, Garth represented the growing commercialization of the genre, something Vince resisted throughout his career. Subtle jabs followed. In interviews, Vince criticized the trend of turning country into Broadway with boots, a phrase many took as a thinly veiled shot at Garth. Fans laughed, but insiders knew the comments cut deeper. Despite both attending major events, they rarely appeared on stage together. In fact, during a tribute concert in 2010, it's telling that Vince, who collaborated with legends like Dolly Parton and Carrie Underwood, never worked with Garth. That silence spoke volumes. While the feud never erupted publicly, their divide was felt by anyone paying close attention. It wasn't about jealousy or competition, it was about values. On the surface, Vince Gill and Chris Christopherson seemed like two respected legends in country music. But beneath the respectful nods and polite exchanges was a quiet, long-running tension. Christopherson, the outlaw poet, thrived on raw emotion and unfiltered storytelling. His songs were often rough, written in bursts of inspiration and grit. Vince Gill, however, was a perfectionist. Every note, every lyric in his music was carefully crafted. He prized clarity, technique, and emotional control, and that made Christopherson's style hard for Vince to respect fully. Insiders have long whispered that Vince found Christopherson's music messy and unstructured. It wasn't about talent. Vince knew Chris could write, but the approach clashed with everything he believed country music should be. To Vince, music wasn't just about heart, it was about discipline, mastery, and lasting quality. Their paths crossed at award shows and industry events, but they never collaborated, and their interactions were notably distant. Vince stayed professional, but never enthusiastic. The real divide was about more than just style, it was about values. That unspoken rivalry represented a broader struggle in country music, raw versus refined, rebellion versus professionalism. Vince once acknowledged the outlaw movement in an interview, saying it pushed boundaries, but quickly added that some went too far in ignoring the fundamentals of good songwriting. In the end, their quiet competition never turned hostile, but it drew a sharp line in the sand. Christopherson inspired the outlaws. Vince influenced the traditionalists. Together, they helped shape the future of the genre, but never side by side. When Billy Ray Cyrus burst onto the scene with Achy Breaky Heart in the early 90s, he changed country music overnight. The song sparked a nationwide line dancing craze and made Billy Ray a household name. But not everyone was cheering. Vince Gill, deeply rooted in the traditions of heartfelt ballads and skillful musicianship, saw something troubling in the wave Billy Ray created. For Vince, Achy Breaky Heart wasn't just a hit, it was a warning sign. Vince believed the song traded musical integrity for mass appeal. Its repetitive structure and simple hook felt like a gimmick, not a piece of art. While millions danced to it, Vince quietly cringed. Behind the scenes, there was no warmth between the two. They shared award shows and red carpets, but insiders say their interactions were cold and distant. Vince was polite, but never personal. Even more concerning for Vince was the ripple effect. Billy Ray's success opened the door for a new generation of artists who prioritized catchy hooks and commercial success over depth. To Vince, this was the start of a dilution of the genre, a move away from storytelling and towards spectacle. Though Vince never publicly attacked Billy Ray, his silence was powerful. He didn't collaborate, didn't praise, and didn't engage. And while he might have recognized that Billy Ray brought new fans to country music, Vince couldn't ignore what was lost in the process: authenticity. Shania Twain didn't just change country music, she flipped it on its head. With shimmering production, empowering lyrics, and cross-genre appeal, she became the queen of country pop, bringing the genre into malls, gyms, and pop radio charts across the globe. But not everyone saw that as progress. Vince Gill, a stalwart for traditional storytelling and raw musicianship, saw something else, a genre losing its soul. While Shania was racking up awards and global fans, Vince remained eerily silent. No duets, no public praise, no mentions at award shows. And in country music's tight-knit community, silence can speak louder than headlines. Vince reportedly admired Shania's work ethic but disagreed with the path she carved, one that leaned hard into mass-market glitz rather than lyrical depth. To Vince, country music had always been about life's messy truths, heartbreak, struggle, and redemption told with a steel-stringed honesty. Shania's hits like Man, I Feel Like a Woman, and That Don't Impress Me Much felt too polished, too choreographed. The rift wasn't dramatic, it was ideological. Vince never publicly criticized Shania, but their lack of collaboration and contrasting styles told the story. He stood for substance. She brought sparkle. And while Shania opened doors for countless women in country, ironically, both artists shaped country music's future. Shania broadened its audience and modernized its sound. Vince fought to keep its core intact. But their parallel legacies never crossed, and that absence still lingers. For Vince, Shania's success symbolized a genre drifting too far from its roots. By the time Jason Aldean rose to fame with his bro-country anthems, Vince Gill had already seen the writing on the wall. Aldean's music, filled with loud guitars, drinking tales, and backroad bravado, captivated younger fans and took country to a whole new commercial level. But for Vince, it felt like the final blow in a long battle. The storytelling, the emotion, the craftsmanship gone. Aldean became the poster child for a style Vince couldn't stand. The themes were shallow, the songwriting repetitive. Vince, who had spent decades perfecting his sound, valued authenticity and emotional truth. Aldean's success represented a new age where image beat out substance. But perhaps the most surprising name whispered onto Vince's no list? Kanye West. Not a country artist by any means, but everything Vince despises about modern music seems embodied in Kanye's brand. Spectacle over soul, ego over emotion. Vince never directly criticized him, but his commentary on fame-hungry artists who turn music into a branding machine clearly pointed toward figures like Kanye. To Vince, music is about humility. It's about stepping back so the song can take center stage. Kanye, on the other hand, turned the stage into his own altar. And Aldean's bro-country energy? Just another version of that same shift. In an industry moving faster and flashier every year, Vince Gill stood still. Not because he couldn't change, but because he chose not to. For him, artists like Aldean and Kanye weren't just part of a different genre or generation. Vince Gill's reputation as country music's nicest guy hides a much more complex figure. One who has drawn firm lines, made tough calls, and refused to compromise his values even when the industry moved in the opposite direction. The 7 names on his reported grudge list aren't about hate, they're about principle. From flashy pop country crossovers to ego-driven icons, Vince quietly stood apart from the trends he believed were hollowing out the heart of country music. He never launched public feuds. He didn't go on rants or call anyone out on stage. Instead, he spoke through absence, no duets, no tributes, no praise. In a world obsessed with noise, Vince let silence carry his message. His refusal to collaborate with Garth Brooks, his cool distance from Shania Twain, and his avoidance of artists like Jason Aldean and even Kanye West, each move was a quiet protest against the direction music was headed. That kind of resistance may not grab headlines, but it shapes legacies. Vince Gill chose the harder path, the one lined with authenticity, not applause. Even now,